Hello, how are you? Today I'm going to talk about the relationship between coffee consumption and the gut. Many people want to know what impact daily coffee consumption has on our intestines, whether it helps relieve or causes constipation, and if it might lead to more gas. Does it change the smell of intestinal gas? Are there any precautions to take when consuming coffee to minimize problems? I'm going to talk about all of this for you right now. Stay until the end, you won't want to miss it. If you love tips on nutrition, health, and fitness, you're going to love this channel. So go ahead and subscribe, and remember to turn on the notification bell to get updates. I have new videos every day, and you're going to love them. Tell me, do you usually drink coffee in your daily routine? What kind of coffee do you have? How do you take your coffee each day? Do you sweeten it or not? Do you use sweetener, sugar, honey? If you add anything like cinnamon or any spice to your coffee, I'd love to know how you take your coffee, because that can actually have an impact on your gut as well. If you enjoy these videos where I talk more about the relationship between a nutrient or even a popular food, like coffee and our body, our gut, or some part of our body, leave a like on the video, because that way I'll know you liked it and I'll make more videos like this. And if you have any suggestions, leave them for me down below in the comments. A lot of people ask me to talk more about coffee because it really is closely tied to many people's daily routines. The vast majority of people drink coffee every day. Many people have coffee in the morning as part of their first meal of the day, or even on an empty stomach. They just drink coffee and continue fasting afterwards. And they want to know more about the relationship between coffee consumption and the gut, because we know that coffee has many beneficial effects on our bodies. Coffee can help improve issues related to inflammation in our bodies. It has a very interesting antioxidant role. It can also help with metabolic issues, even potentially preventing problems related to type 2 diabetes if you have a good diet and a healthy lifestyle. And it can be good for the cardiovascular system. And there are people who ask me about the relationship between coffee and the gut. People with more sluggish or constipated bowels ask me if it can help loosen things up or if it will make them more constipated. They want to know if it will have any kind of impact on the microbiome, the gut microbiota, the bacteria, the yeasts that live in our intestines. So what does coffee actually do to the gut? Let's talk more about that then. A very interesting detail regarding coffee consumption is that coffee acts by stimulating intestinal transit. So there are many people who, in fact, have the habit of drinking a cup of coffee in the morning and just a few minutes later feel the urge to have a bowel movement to release the stool that was sitting in the intestine. This happens because, as I mentioned, coffee stimulates peristalsis and intestinal function, and it kind of pushes the stool out of our body. So, coffee can indeed have the potential to help in cases of constipation, especially for people who have the habit of drinking it regularly, at the same time each day. We know, in fact, that this ritualistic aspect, eating foods at the same time, drinking beverages at the same time, sitting on the toilet at the very same moment of the day to try to get that stimulus, or when you feel the urge, going straight to the toilet to try to have a bowel movement, all of these rituals, these small eating and lifestyle habits can really help a lot in resolving intestinal constipation. So if you have your coffee at the same time every morning, you get that reflex to have a bowel movement, that vagus nerve reflex. Take advantage of it and try to go to the bathroom right away in the morning, because this will create a positive cycle. In addition, the fact that coffee stimulates intestinal transit is also reflected in the microbiome itself, in the gut microbiota, which is made up of bacteria and beneficial yeasts that inhabit our bodies. The better our intestinal transit is, the more flow we have of good bacteria entering and leaving our bodies. So we end up having a greater colonization of beneficial bacteria and a reduction of harmful bacteria, which also benefits our body and our gut in a broader sense. You know that having a well-functioning gut is very important for our health, for our immune system, and for our emotional well-being. I even have a video here on the channel talking more about how the gut is our second brain and making sure it functions well, that waste is expelled properly, and avoiding having stool sitting there for too long, fermenting, causing the intestine to bloat, making you have more gas, and increasing the presence of toxins there in contact with the wall of your intestine. It's very important to avoid this, and coffee can help you in this regard. It's important to emphasize that this beneficial effect of coffee is closely related to moderate consumption, as I mentioned. Someone who has a coffee in the morning, maybe another one in the afternoon, but without overdoing it. That's because coffee, despite having many beneficial effects as I mentioned, also has a diuretic effect on our body. So, if you're the kind of person who replaces water with coffee, you're probably going to be more dehydrated, and as a result, your stools will also become more dehydrated and harder. And in this case, you'll have the opposite effect of causing constipation. That's why, for some people, coffee causes constipation and dries things out. It's not the coffee itself, it's the amount you drink. Because if you drink too much, it will dehydrate your whole body, and you'll also experience those negative cumulative effects, like increased heart rate, increased anxiety, and you'll lose the ability to concentrate because you're too jittery. So, it's that old saying, what makes the difference between medicine and poison is the dose, really. So coffee has many beneficial effects, including for the gut, as I mentioned, but only in the right amount. Don't overdo it. Remember that it's also very important to stay hydrated, and I have a video here on the channel with techniques and daily tips to help you remember to drink more water throughout the day. I'll leave it down below in the description to help you as well. Coffee is naturally acidic, so it should be consumed with caution by people who have gastritis, reflux, or any inflammatory bowel disease. If you have Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, or even irritable bowel syndrome, it might be a good idea to replace coffee with a beverage that has less caffeine and is less acidic, another type of lighter tea that will have less impact on your intestines since they're already more sensitive. But just to emphasize, this really only applies in these specific cases. If you don't have these intestinal diseases or gastric sensitivity, coffee usually won't cause you any problems. In fact, quite the opposite. We also know that too much coffee can make people overly jittery and harm their sleep. And there is a connection between several nights of poor sleep and a decline in intestinal health as well. In fact, I have a video here where I talk more specifically about this and what you can do to minimize it. Of course, coffee often worsens sleep quality, especially for people who are more sensitive to caffeine and for those who drink a lot of coffee or consume it too close to bedtime. In any case, if you want to know more specifically about the relationship between coffee and sleep and how it affects the gut, I'll leave the video down below in the description for you, so this video doesn't get too long. Be careful also with what you add to your coffee, because usually when we talk about the benefits of coffee for bowel movements and for the microbiota, we're referring to black filtered coffee without sugar, sweeteners, or anything else. So we know that excess sugar is highly pro-inflammatory. Sugar is the favorite food of the harmful bacteria in our gut and in our body. So if you want to improve your gut microbiota, if you're experiencing dysbiosis and want good probiotic bacteria to grow in your intestine, it's important that you cut sugar from your diet, including the sugar in your coffee, not just sweets. In this specific case of people who have some kind of intestinal problem, a greater tendency to produce gas, or have irritable bowel syndrome or another intestinal disease, it's also important to avoid non-caloric sweeteners that are fermentable, such as xylitol, for example. So stevia might be a more interesting alternative, as it has less impact on gas formation and bloating, which can be problematic for some people who suffer from these intestinal issues. Remember that I have videos where I talk about irritable bowel syndrome and inflammatory bowel diseases. I'll leave them down here below. Because, in fact, in my video about irritable bowel syndrome, I talk more about FODMAPs, the fermentable carbohydrates, and we also discuss a bit about which sweeteners are allowed. I'll leave it down here in the description for you if that's relevant. So, be careful with sugar, with artificial sweeteners, be cautious with any kind of condensed milk or syrup, because sometimes you buy a flavored coffee with a special taste, and that will have sugar, colorings, preservatives, which are bad for your gut health. Also be careful when adding too much fat to your coffee. Nowadays, it's trendy for people to put ghee butter or coconut oil in their coffee, and usually that's not a problem for most people. As I always say, for those who don't have any associated health conditions, a teaspoon of fat isn't going to cause you any problems. Now, if you already have some type of intestinal disease, if you suffer from frequent diarrhea, or if you're experiencing difficulty forming your stool properly, then increasing your fat intake can actually worsen the situation. It will make the stool softer, looser, and can end up promoting even more diarrhea. In these situations, these fats are not necessarily recommended. You need to be especially cautious with the amount you consume, because paying attention to that detail makes a big difference. If you're watching this video because you want to improve your gut health, want to improve your bowel movements, if you're always constipated or have had dysbiosis, remember that I have a playlist here on the channel about digestion and a healthy gut, where I give several tips, including how to fight constipation. I even have a playlist here with natural laxative recipes, using real foods, homemade, natural ingredients that you can easily add to your daily routine to help your gut as well, to support bowel flow, proper functioning, and the elimination of stool. On the other hand, if you have these associated intestinal issues, or if you suffer from diarrhea, remember that I also have a video about that here on the channel, and I'll leave it down below in the description for you. Tell me down below then, what is your relationship with coffee like? Do you feel that you go to the bathroom more easily when you drink coffee? Do you have any kind of gastric or intestinal sensitivity to coffee? I would love to see your comment. Remember to like the video, it really helps me a lot. And if you know someone who would enjoy this information, who needs this information, share the video. Let's expand this chain of good together and help this video reach more people, because that's what I want here with the channel. See you next time. Bye.